But you were mentioning your Christian faith and in your art and what you do. Speak about that a little bit. Like, how has your faith influenced your art, influenced the way you move, the way you live, stuff like that?
Yeah. Um. So yeah, bro, it's everywhere. So basically, when I had the idea to make All Black Fruit, I knew I wanted to make a story, and I knew I wanted to write twists and have these characters and have cool situations, because I'd see something and I go, dang, I want that, but I want to do it the way I want to do it.
Mm.
And then when I was writing the story, right, I've I haven't read, like, I'm not like a scholar or nothing, right? But I read the Bible a couple times, and I study a lot. I listen to a lot of theologians. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I love seeing the stories in the Bible, the themes, how they relate to each other, and just how it all connects. And it's all one big finger pointing to Jesus, right?
Mm.
I think that's so cool, and I think the Bible is written in such a poetic and a clever way. So when I was writing the story, all these themes that I had in my head from the Bible kept popping up.
Mm.
Redemption, forgiveness, and I'm like, whoa, what, I'm doing this by accident. And then I remember I always thought to myself, I was like, I love God and I want to draw more people close to him. I was like, how can I do that and also do what I love?
Yeah.
And I think one big part of Christianity and winning people isn't about trying to convince them. It's more so about displaying God for them, so that when they see him, they recognize him. When
Mm.
they hear his voice, them calling him, they recognize whose voice it is. So what I tried to do with my story, or what I'm trying to do, is I'll put a lot of things in there that people won't know about. So if there's somebody who's never read the Bible before, and say they read my first 3 chapters, there's things that they're going to notice in there that are in the Bible. So if they read
Mm.
my chapters and then they went and read the whole Bible, I don't know how they do that quickly, but they did it. They say, "Oh, I remember that from this. Oh, I
Yeah.
remember that from that." Like, I remember watching Infinity War, when Thanos threw Gamora off the cliff to sacrifice her to get the what's the Soul Stone. I
Yeah.
think it was, in my head, I'm thinking that's Abraham and Isaac, right? That's
Mm.
Abraham and Isaac, but there was no
No, no
ram.
ram. Yeah, yeah, no
Yeah, there
ram.
was no. And then I remember thinking about when Thanos snapped and everybody disappeared. I'm like, that's a Bible reference when people talk about the rapture and whatnot. Um, or like in Thor, when the first Thor, when he loses everything his father gave him,
Yeah.
and then after he comes back, he gets everything he once had, prodigal son, and
Yeah.
his brother was upset about it at the end. So
Mm.
I like things like that, where fiction can reflect the Bible in a way to where people connect with these stories, and then when they hear it again, they say, "Wow, that's where that came from. That
Yeah.
was, that was the inspiration behind that. There might be something to that."
Mm.
And then they do a deep dive. So honestly, I'm trying to put my life story in this John.
Yo, no, bro, I love that. I've always been of the belief that, like, when it comes to, these stories, that they always reflect something greater, right?
Yeah.
Um, for example, like, this is a classic one, Chronicles of Narnia, right? Like,
Yes.
Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like, C.S.
Yes,
Lewis
Lewis.
wrote, like, he wrote that story not even in the sense that for it to be like um a apologetic story, but more
A
so
Bible story.
yeah, he was like telling his life story through that book, and then it had the Christian elements in it to point people
Yes.
to who
Yes.
Jesus is. And like, I love that, because like, in reality, if all things point to Jesus, right? If everything was made
Right.
through him and for him, right? That
Right.
means that the stories that we see, whether they be Christian or not, ultimately point to this reality of who God is, who Jesus is, the reality of suffering, humanity, stuff like that.
Yep.
So like, I love when you guys when you guys like put those themes in your stories, so that when, like you said, when people do see them, they're like, oh, bet, like, this reminds me of the Bible. Like,
Yep.
what how is this in there? How does this like flow and is like so like created so beautifully? It's like, hey, like,
Yeah.
you're getting it from the source.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and so it's amazing. And it's just like, and one thing I'm big about is this, like, when it comes to art, movies, whatever,
Mhm.
they should not be how can what's the trash? They should not be trash, right? Like
Yeah.
so the fact that I see you guys like Craze Kai, I see like Noah, you guys put so much like effort into your art that it's like this is done really, really well. It has Christian themes in it, and it's just not just anything, right? Because I think sometimes in the Christian community, like we're just like I think people are just expected to just accept anything because it's Christian, and it's just like I guess, right? But like if you put your work or your hard work into a story, into whatever it is, and it comes out beautiful, it's gonna attract the Christian, but also it's gonna attract people that aren't Christian anyway. And it's gonna be like, yo, like what, like how can this story that's like Christian themed be so like, you know, relatable?
Right, I thought Christians were supposed to be whack. What happened? You
right?
know?
Like that's what I'm saying. And so I really do appreciate that you want to do that, right? And
oh yeah.
I'm just thankful for it because like, you know, we don't like let Christian things be beautiful, right? It doesn't have to be like pure flick is trash. I will always trash it, but you know, it'd be what it be. It'd be what it be. So yeah, no, I appreciate that, bro. So do you see first, like do you experience a tension with like your faith and also just being in the anime space? Like is that like can that be a struggle sometimes? Because sometimes like, you know, there's some I guess some tropes in anime or manga that kind of just like, oh, this would be uncomfortable, right? For me, I'm like, honestly, I cringe when people like are just like, or this Christian people, they're like, yeah, that's not Christian because it shows like something about anime that's just like, it's just whatever, right? But for me, I don't really mind it. But then some people just find attention within that. So do you find attention in that as well, or you're just like, yo, it is what it is? Like,
dang, bro, that's another good one. So it's funny. When I first started writing the story, I think I want to say 16 or something. It was when I was like trying to like muster something up. I remember going to my mom. She has a brilliant, godly mind, you know. So she's who I go to a lot when I have questions. And I was like, Mom, I want to make a story, right? And I was like, I want to have Bible elements in it, right? But it might not be exactly what was in the Bible. You get what I'm saying? Like, I want to have like a story like Sodom and Gomorrah, but it's not going to say exactly what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah the way the Bible says it. I'm like, Mom, is it okay if I do that? And her perspective was, if it's fiction and you're claiming that it's fiction, you're fine. She was like, if you're trying to tell people that this is what actually happened in real time in the Bible, you have an issue because now you're adding on to the Bible. But if you're taking a story and it's fiction and it's fictional and this is how you're telling it, you're fine with that. So I said, oh, okay, all right, good. I can proceed, right? Because I never want to do anything and not have God's blessing with it. You know, it feels like it's for naught. So yeah, I do struggle with certain things like like classical fan service. You're not gonna see that over here. You know, it just doesn't really make sense to me. I think man, I'm not trying to throw no shade, but I know a couple people who rely heavily on fan service stuff, and it's like, bruh, what type of attention are you drawing to your stuff? Is it your creativity and your art, or is it just titties or something, bro? Like, like, keep it honest. And also there is like the aspect of like death and gore and idolatry and whatnot. But the way I see it, and hopefully this is accurate, is that as long as it's in a context where it shows the repercussions of these things and it's not worshiping them, I think we're good.
Yeah. No, that's a good take. That's a good way to look at it. I think it's interesting. Like I was talking to my wife about this the other day about like just kind of what it seems like an over sexualization and like, you know, anime culture or whatever. And that was also another thing that people were like, it's just like, why? It's just the way it is. Like, why are you like, you know? I'm just like, but it doesn't have to be though.
Right? I'm not accept it.
Like, I'm just like, take like Attack on Titan for example. It's like, yo, this is like a, you know, there's some nudity in it, I guess, because of the big, like the giant, you know,
right?
Like, you can't really count. But I'm just like, there was no sense of like fan service, I
Yeah.
guess, like to kind of be able to move the story along. It just told a great story.
Yep.
And like when I see the, you know, fan service, like big, you know, everybody's just naked, right? If it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, does this really need that? You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
is it necessary for it to keep it going? And like, honestly, it's just appealing to a certain audience. Like, you know, like
It's a creepy audience.
yeah, a certain creepy audience. I'm just like,
Mm.
what? Like, why do you have to do this? If like, why can't you just let the art speak for itself? But
Yeah.
if it's just the way Japanese culture is, who am I to talk about it? You know what I mean? It's like that.
Yeah, I feel you.
But